Eye of Truth. Resplendent with the glory of Menoth, the Eye of Truth banishes the foul sorceries of unbelievers with the might of the divine will. When this magnificent warjack fights alongside Malachus, the burning truth, there is no place for the wicked and unrepentant to hide, and their perfidies are soon cleansed from the world. It is a machine that has transcended its humble origins as a simple weapon of war to become a true instrument of the Great Crusade. Assigned as the guardian of the great temple of the Creator at the heart of Sol, the warjack that would become the Eye of Truth was among those serving in Fiora's battle group as the Signarns made their push to take the ancient holy structure, which had long stood as a symbol of the city's history and devotion to Menoth. When the fighting grew thickest and the sweeps of battle forced the priestess of the flame elsewhere, the warjack was left to fight without her guidance. It was at this point that Malachus, who had only recently discovered his warcaster talent, witnessed the battered machine perform a miracle he ascribed to divine intervention. Acting of its own volition, the machine moved to bar the main entrance of the temple with its massive frame. It beat back waves of faithless intent on defying the sacred structure, which was not only a place of worship but also a crypt for the ancient Menite kings and priests, housing countless relics stretching back to the time of Calasia. With sword and shield, it held its ground, and the holy light burned within the machine's eyes as flames leapt through the throngs of the enemies to char them where they stood. Just as the warjack finally fell, reinforcements arrived. The Signarns were defeated, and the great temple was preserved. Though the machine lay battered and destroyed, a holy light had touched it, and Malachus was determined to see it restored. Malachus ordered the twisted and smoldering remains removed and taken to the artificers at the Incendium's disposal. With the approval of the Priestess of the Flame, he made the reconstruction of the warjack his personal project, in addition to overseeing the work of the artificers tasked with rebuilding this chassis. Malachus performed extensive religious rites over the cortex and frame. The warcaster spent weeks laboring in the intricacies of inscription and blessing, all while relishing the time spent with the machine he knew had been a vessel of the Lawbringer's power, a machine he now called the Eye of Truth. Made even more resplendent through the effort of Malachus, the Eye of Truth retains vestiges of the divine power that guided it to defend the temple. It has since manifested a number of surprising capabilities that even the most experienced vassals of Menoth and Sol Midnight artificers cannot explain. Enemies burst into flame before its gaze, and the warjack serves as a conduit of Malachus' own prayers, extending his powers on the battlefield. And this guy is massive, just like Malachus, who's also massive because Malachus is freaking huge. But just like Malachus, this guy loves fire, likes to throw it out, likes to put it on all sorts of people. Which is weird that he likes fire so much, because he doesn't have a flamethrower or anything that would normally catch people on fire. You'll see in a second, but he literally just has to stare at somebody with his gaze and they burst into flames, which is kind of terrifying, but very, very protectorate. So yes, and he allows a bunch of other very fun stuff as well for Malachus, but we will read about that right now. Let's check the Mark III to Mark IV changes and see how much more dangerous this guy has become. And as always, we'll start with his stat line because that's always the most interesting. So he is a heavy jack. He has a speed 5, a mat 8, which has been increased. So Mark III only had a mat 7, so he's now a mat 8. His rat is still 6, defense is 10, armor is 19, although he does carry a shield, so that will drive him up to a 2-1-2-1. He is a large heavy warjack, so he does have all the abilities of a heavy warjack, including trample, slam, and headbutt. He also has immunity to fire, which makes sense since he can shoot out fire. Might as well make him immune to it himself. He has dual attacks, so he can make range attacks and melee attacks during the same activation. So that is always fun. His abilities have changed a little bit from Mark III to Mark IV. So we still have Ashen Veil, which is probably the most annoying spell to anybody that's had to go up against it. This model has concealment, so if you're shooting at him, his defense goes up to a 12. Living enemy models without resistance to fire suffer a -2 to attack rolls while within 2 of this model. So not only does he have concealment from range attacks, but if somebody is up in his melee range, he still gains his +2 defense basically. So Yeah, and then he gives that to everybody within 2 inches of him. So if you got other people within 2 inches of him too, he kind of spreads that around. So very, very useful there. His bond with Malachus is probably the most interesting for such a heavy warjack. If he is bonded to Malachus, that's all normal bonding stuff. While the Eye of Truth is bonded to Malachus, and in his control range, Malachus can channel spells through it. So this large freaking warjack can channel spells without an arc node. Yeah, that's just as dangerous as you think. And Malachus loves fire spells, so, you know, let it burn, I suppose. Then his other ability he has is Holy Light. While within 5 inches of this model, friendly models ignore bonuses from spells that add to an enemy model's arm and defense. So this guy shuts down arm and defense buffs on spells to not just himself, but every friendly model within 5 inches of him as well, making, well, pretty much making your enemy's spell or defense boost or armor bust from spells, you know, null and void while within 5. And this guy is very good at getting into the enemy's positions as well. So let's read over his the special ability they took off of him from Mark 3 to Mark 4 was Oracle Vision. So that spell, if he's directly hit by an attack, you can immediately spend 1 focus to not suffer any damage from that attack. That has been removed. I imagine they didn't want to keep that going for some reason. Maybe they said it made him too broken. He is pretty high armor anyway, so I suppose they figure, oh, he'll probably take a beating or 2, so he'll be all right. But that happens sometimes. Let's go over his weapons. So he has the Gaze of Justice, the spell or the attack we were talking about earlier. And what this is he just stares at somebody and they burst into flames, which is terrifying. Very, you know, fire starter vibe on that one. So it is a Rat 6, range 8, rate of fire 1, AoE 0, and a POW 14. So it is a solo destroyer if you can hit the solo. The other special abilities on this weapon is he has Gunfighter, so he can attack models he's in melee with it. It is a magical weapon, it's fire damage, and it causes fire continuous effect. So if he doesn't destroy him outright with it, the fire will keep on burning as long as it's going. So POW 14 originally, and a POW 12 for every time they can't get that fire to go out. So yeah, very, very terrifying for anybody hit by that. And it's not even a flamethrower, so he doesn't even need ammo. How dangerous is that? But I digress. Let's go over his melee weapons. He has a shield, Mat 8, range 1, POW 14. Gives him a +2 armor, driving his armor all the way up to 21, as long as he still has that left arm capability. And with the Mark 4, 360-degree vision means he doesn't have any back arc, so his armor's always 21 until you remove that left arm. And then his melee weapon, Holy Wrath. It is a Mat 8, range 2, so it's a reach weapon. And it's a POW 18. POW 18's pretty dang staggering for anybody hit with a POW 18, including heavy warjacks. So this guy likes to get in there, do lots and lots of damage, and then he can channel spells and remove defense and armor buffs off of enemies. And he has Ashen Veil, so he can increase the defense of basically everybody within 2 inches of himself, including himself. So yeah, also his Holy Wrath weapon also has critical fire effects. So if you get a critical on the hit, he blasts them into fire, and it is a magical weapon, so he can take on incorporeal models, no problems at all. So yeah, this is definitely a powerhouse, definitely very, very Malachus in design. Yeah, I think this really takes Malachus up to a different level, and allows Malachus's enjoyment of fire and purging the non-believers to the next level. So.